Good morning, guys. 7:42 on this Thursday morning. Hope you're having a good week so far. It's almost the weekend, and it's another cold start. We're at 24 in Cleveland, 22 in Lafayette, 18 in Athens. Been cold January so far. Temperatures are running about 6 degrees below normal for this January, and last several Januaries have been above normal. So, if you like the cold weather, I guess this has been the January for you. Here's a look at your highs today. Generally going to be in the mid-50s, 55 in Chattanooga, 54 in Scottsboro, and really it's going to feel like a spring day, honestly. It's been cold lately. I think we'll take this. And we're still hanging on to some of that snow from last Friday in the shaded areas. And from my understanding, some of the mountain roads in like Gilmer, Polk County, still not doing all that good. You have these microclimates where the sunshine doesn't hit, so temperatures might be 55, but in those areas it's a lot colder because you're not getting that direct sunlight to warm up. So there's still going to be a couple issues out there on some of those back roads in some of our mountain communities from that snow we got on Friday. And it's still hanging out even around my apartment in Red Bank. I can still notice it, especially in those areas where the sun don't hit. So it's going on 6 days, almost a week, and I think the old tale is if snow is still on the ground 5 days after snow here in the south, we're going to get more. It's possible. We'll see. But here's a look at your future cast. So we'll fast forward this thing because we're not really talking about anything today or tomorrow. It's going to be cold each morning. Thursday morning, of course, which is right now, Friday morning. But each afternoon is going to be very nice. So Thursday and Friday probably going to be our best days moving forward. And then we're going to track some rain. So the clouds move in late Friday. I think the rain probably holds off until after about 11, and then we could have a couple of showers. Now, we're not looking at a severe threat here, but there could be some heavier showers and maybe a rumble of thunder or two moving through as we get into early Saturday morning. And then by, we'll say 8 o'clock, a lot of this is starting to move off to the east, and mid-morning we're generally going to be a little bit drier with some lingering light showers and maybe a transition to more of a wintry mix or some snow showers late Saturday into Sunday along the plateau, and maybe even a valley flurry by the time we get into Sunday, because after this rain moves out, it's going to be about the Arctic air, going to bring the boom here across the Tennessee Valley. Here's a look at your futurecast rainfall. Generally going to be a half of an inch to an inch, so a good soaking, and we're still in a drought, so any rain that we can get moving forward is still very beneficial, and this is going to be an all-rain event. Now, next week, that's when things get interesting. So, of course, the big topic, if you have an internet or have been online or follow any meteorologist or weather pages, talking about the cold. It's going to get cold. It's going to get cold. Well, yes, that's still on the table. Also watching next Tuesday to Friday, which is January 21st to 25th, closely for maybe some winter weather. So we're going to have a very strong Arctic high starting to set up shop across the northern half of the country. Could be like 1045 millibars, which is exceptionally strong even for this time of the year. If that kind of moves a little further to the south, pushes that cold air further to the south, we're likely just to have dry, cold conditions here across the Tennessee Valley. That is a little bit weaker, doesn't push that cold air as far to the south. Things get a little more interesting because you can get that jet stream, the southern branch, moving a little further to the north, and it won't be suppressed so far to the south, so we could actually have a little bit of wintry weather. So the first threat for any kind of winter potential would likely be Tuesday into Wednesday. So this is scenario one. You have a northerly track, so the cold air not as far to the south. Still very cold regardless. That's going to be the trend here in the Tennessee Valley, but this would keep the storm track further to the north. Likely see a low pressure developing somewhere off the coast of Texas or Louisiana, riding along the northern Gulf Coast, still giving winter weather threats to places like southeast Texas, Louisiana, much of Alabama. But the further north you go, you kind of run out of it and you're going to be in that dry, cold air. But that could lead to maybe a little bit of winter weather, snow, ice across portions of the Tennessee Valley into the Carolinas. Scenario two, which I think right now for Tuesday and Wednesday is probably a little more likely. This would keep cold and dry conditions across our area, so North Georgia, Northeast Alabama, Tennessee, parts of the Carolinas. This would keep that low pressure track or active jet stream further to the south, so you have that cold air pushing, and it's hard to get anything to develop in cold, dry air. You have the southern branch of the jet stream being inched off into the Gulf of Mexico, so your storm development location is going to be further to the south, and likely this would lead to winter weather threats in places that rarely see it, in southern Louisiana, parts of the Panhandle of Florida, if you can believe that, maybe some ice, and up into coastal Carolina. coastal South Carolina and North Carolina, and maybe even coastal Georgia. So this would be interesting because that would be more of a south of I-20 thing. There's also another scenario that I didn't paint out that would put this even further to the south, and pretty much everyone's just going to be cold and dry. So that's going to be something we watch closely. I think this is probably more favorable, believe it or not. Could be some ice and winter weather in the deep south heading into next week. So we can kind of look at a couple of different solutions. These are just operational models, so they'll change from run to run. But this is the latest European as we go into early next week. This has more, again, you can see that low pressure development a little further off into the coast of Texas, bringing, yes, that is blue, snow to parts of New Orleans, South Alabama, even the Florida Panhandle, Jacksonville. I mean, it's happened before. It's not that unusual. And then some snow off the Carolina coastline. So that's an interesting setup there. And then as that Arctic high shifts to the east, we get return flow. That'll bring a better chance of a storm system late in the week. But the problem is, as that Arctic high moves to the east and we get that southerly flow, could be warm enough for just an all rain event by the end of the week. So that'll be something we watch for pretty closely as well. And again, the model consensus has been all over the place, so I wouldn't put too much stock into this just yet. GFS has the solution I think is probably more likely at this point. Arctic air suppresses the storm track. Notice really nothing going on. As it moves to the east, we get return flow from the Gulf of Mexico, that southerly flow. And then we could maybe have a little winter weather Thursday into Friday, but might be more of a rain event as well as that warm air surges. So, you know, kind of a tricky forecast. Not a whole lot of consensus just yet, but it's something we're certainly still watching. Here's a look at the ensemble guidance, which I like better because it gives us an average solution. The Canadian, a lot more bullish on snow potential for much of the south heading into next week. That's about a 50 to 60% chance of at least an inch through Friday morning. And a lot of this is kind of honing in on Tuesday, Wednesday for the Canadian model, which has a cold bias and isn't always that reliable. And I'm throwing it in there just to show you some of the possible outcomes. The European ensemble through Thursday morning, 20 to 40% chance of maybe an inch of snow, which isn't that impactful, but it does give us an idea that there's still a storm signal showing up. And for the GFS, about a 20 to 30% chance through Friday morning. But if you look at the threat for like Tuesday and Wednesday, the GFS is very anti-winter weather on Tuesday, Wednesday. It likes more of a drier, cold Arctic solution. So we'll see how this all plays out. But there's still a signal for winter weather in the southeast heading into next week. Not super strong for the middle of the week, but the end of the week could get more interesting, just depending on how things shake out. Again, the intrusion of this Arctic air and how far south it goes is going to be very critical to the forecast. Here's a look at your national blend of models. This is through Friday morning. So this accumulates, or is average accumulation of snowfall for, you know, all the models combined, just putting together a blend of everything. 1 to 2 inches possible across, you know, much of the southeast, higher amounts in the Carolinas and northern Louisiana and southeast Texas. But still a pretty good storm signal nonetheless, something to kind of pay attention to. Also puts an icing threat across parts of the southeast. But this is also very contingent on where the storm develops, if we have one at all. So that's just kind of a breakdown of what's possible next week. The big story, I think, regardless of what kind of winter weather we see, if any at all, it's going to be cold. We're talking Arctic air moving across portions of the northern half of the country. In fact, there could be wind chill values of -40 to -50 across Minnesota and the Dakotas, maybe even parts of Wisconsin dropping to that -40 to -30 wind chill range. And for us, it's going to be bitterly cold Monday and Tuesday as well. And then that Arctic air starts to slide to the east as we move into the end of the week. We get that return flow, so it could be a little bit warmer by Thursday and Friday. Which means any active weather could be just plain old rain. So that's another possible solution. But go ahead and get prepared for this because the coldest air that we're going to have so far this season, maybe all year long. I kind of think of Christmas a couple of years ago where we had those days in the 20s and overnight lows in the single digits. That could be possible again here. across portions of our viewing area. But wind chills drop off quickly Sunday by 8 p.m. Feels like 12 in Chattanooga, 9 in Blue Ridge as that Arctic air really starts to move in. The winds will be gusting out of the northwest at about 20 to 25 miles per hour. And then going into the overnight hours, look at this. By Monday morning, wind chill values right around 1, 2, 3 degrees in the valley, dropping below zero for some of our mountain and plateau communities. And even during the afternoon on Monday, despite the sunshine, not going to help us a whole lot. Look at that. 3 p.m. feels like 15 here in Chattanooga. So it's one of those days where you don't want to be overexposed. Frostbite can happen very quickly, especially with those wind chills close to zero. And for us at this latitude, this is dangerous cold, especially for folks who may not have sufficient heating. So make sure you're checking on your people. Make sure they have a warm place to stay. And then by Tuesday, wind chills back right around the low teens to the single digits. So it is going to be very cold. Looking at your high temperature trend, again, Sunday's the pivot point. Much colder. Monday, Tuesday, dropping down into the 20s. Our average high this time of the year in Chattanooga, right around 51, 52. Average low, right around 32. So our highs on Monday and Tuesday are going to be colder than our average lows this time of the year. And I know it's January and it gets cold, but this is the kind of cold we probably only see every 2, 3, 4, 5 years across parts of the Tennessee Valley. It happens, but it's not as common as what we've been dealing with lately, where you have occasional highs in the 30s and lows in the low 20s. Here's a look at your valley mornings. So cold Thursday and Friday mornings, a little bit warmer into the weekend, and then Sunday, that's when temperatures start to drop throughout the day. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, low teens, wind chill values near zero. But if we pinpoint a mountain community like Murphy, you can have those single digit readings Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So it is going to be bitterly cold moving into early next week. That's going to be the consensus. But looking ahead to your 7-day forecast, big changes on the way. 50s here in the Tennessee Valley today, tomorrow. Enjoy that weather. Saturday we'll have a rain, some areas picking up upwards of an inch. All rain event. Late Saturday into Sunday, some of that leftover moisture could be snow showers. Even in the valley, we could have a few flurries during the day on Sunday. High of 38, but temperatures falling throughout the day. 15 by the time you wake up Monday morning. Wind chills near zero. Bitterly cold Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Still watching the low wind threat Tuesday and Wednesday for maybe a little bit of winter weather, but it looks like that's probably going to stay to our south for now. With that being said, we've kind of seen guidance all over the place, so that can change. So continue to check back. So general messaging, I think today, enjoy the weather and prepare for the cold to come heading into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of next week.